What's up YouTube, Dar here from Zephyr War Games, and it's good to be back with a Dark Magician profile update. Now it's taken me a bit of time. I've been looking into the ins and the outs of this deck, and I've built this as competitive as possible. As the title does suggest, it is a hybrid deck. It is Dark Magician with Bystials and of course the Dogmatikas as well. But that is because you want to make this deck as competitive as possible. The Bystials not only share synergy in the fact that it helps you get into your boss monster of Dragoon, but it also provides you with the ability to either extend a board or interrupt a board by going first or second. The Dogmatikas themselves can be completely taken out if you wish, but they do also share that exact same effect that going first, it gives you a complete control over the board state. Going second is when it can start becoming a form of interruption later on in the game, or being able to kind of set you up additional protection or back row for your Dragoon. There are other alternatives for this deck if you want to make it more pure. If you want to make it more control, you do have access to stuff like Skill Drain, Rivalry, and many more cards like Secret Village as well. But with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content, including more stuff Dark Magician related. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into my favourite deck, and that is, of course, Dark Magician. So you start off with a double Dark Magician. As many people have said before, 3 is too much, 1 is too little. It is obviously going to be a little bit more important in this deck as well, purely because it does count as a Dark in the graveyard. With the Bystials themselves, you ideally want to be banishing your opponent's stuff, less so your stuff, because you won't gain advantage off of the back of that. However, what this deck does and synergizes well with the Bystials is because it naturally plays Dark monsters, it does give you that access in order to banish them should you need to. We've then, of course, got triple Magician's Rod. When is this card getting an upgrade? Like, please, I would love to see this in a secret, because then it would match Magician's Souls, and I think it would look absolutely beautiful. So the standard lineup of obviously 3 and 3. Magician's Souls gives you access to Dark Magician, but it can also give you access to a card on the board that can then send other spells or traps to the graveyard to draw free fodder. Now keep in mind, a little bit of a note about the Bystials is your Bystial Beast or your Branded Beast will let you reset in the end phase your Branded Regain. What does that mean? Well, what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is if you had Branded Beast on the board with Branded Regained, and then you special summon out Magician's Souls, Magician's Souls can send a Regain, give you a draw, and then in the end phase, Beast would reset the Regained. So you've just got a draw for pretty much free, which is absolutely mental, and I've got to absolutely love it. Continuing on with the Dark Magician cards, we do play the 1 Dogmatika United Dragon. So obviously with the Dark Magicians, what you're trying to emphasize more times than not is being able to get into Dragoon. I'm going to show you all of the different routes you have to get into Dragoon right now. So obviously, route 1 is obviously through Timaeus. Route number 2 will be through Red Eyes and of course Red Eyes Fusion. Route 3 can be through Magical Eyes Fusion, which is even more important with the Bystials because you can put Bystials in the graveyard very easily, and then you can activate Magical Eyes Fusion. Yes, it will require you to banish your Dark Magician, but by doing so you're going into a Dragoon, which will probably be your second copy. Another card that we can use to get into it, and the best thing about this is you can actually Dragoon during your opponent's turn, is Secrets of Dark Magic. Now, keeping in mind as well, during the end phase, Bystial Magnamute will allow you to search out any dragon monster. You could technically search out Timaeus if you wanted to. The chances are you're going to be searching out your Druid Swarm, and on top of that, what this gives you is as long as you don't banish a Dark Magician that you might want to bring back with Eternal Soul, is you can bring back Druid Swarm, and then you can activate your Secrets of Magic to fuse the Druid Swarm on the field and a Dark Magician on the field or in the hand to make a Dragoon. Not only will that then allow you to trigger the Druid Swarm's effect to target a special monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard, it will also set you up with a very nice Red Eyes Dark Dragoon to enable to perform 2 forms of interruption, and technically by activating this it can form some ability to dodge card effects, because if they activate something like, if they're trying to bounce a Dark Magician, banish a Dark Magician, anything like that, you can chain this and make it. It also means that if they Dark Ruler you, if they clear your board off, you can still have the ability, as long as this is still there, to get into your Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. So that's it for ways to getting into Dragoon himself. Then carrying on with the consistent Dark Magician cards, we've got double Illusion of Chaos and triple Preparation of Rites. One card I would like to put in here is Saravis. But Saravis is less effective. It's a form of being able to dodge targeting effects on Rod and Souls, and it's kind of one of the ones where if you've already got Illusion, you can go prep into that instead. You could play 2 Prep and 2 Illusion, but again, it's one of them ones where you kind of want to balance out what you need. And the reason you play 3 and 2 rather than 3 and 2 the other way around is because this can also be discard fodder off of Magician's Souls in forms of fusion draw capabilities. The final Dark Magician card we play is the One Soul Servant. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be like, what? Why are you only playing One Soul Servant? Well, it's for the pure fact that in this deck, because I wanted to make it as consistent and as powerful as possible, I am playing Pot of Prosperity. So it does clash with the draw effect of this. Yes, the stack effect is really, really nice, but the idea of the stack effect is only going to be useful if you're going to be able to draw it later on. So that will then come off of the back of a Magician's Souls draw, or of course a Pot of Prosperity, Excavation, and then draw. So it's something that you don't really want to rely on as much, and it is a one-off that you kind of want to search off of your Magician's Rod. The other Dark Magician cards that we do play are, of course, the One Circle and the One Eternal Soul. These are no longer needed at 3. It is quite sad. I do want to be bringing these guys back to multiples. But right now, because I want to make this deck as competitively viable as possible, you want to minimize on these as much. So Eternal Soul, when it gets destroyed, nukes your entire board, which is a big kick in the arse. And that's where the only card will remain standing will be something like a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And it's not something you want to rely on. Yes, it's cool to bring back Dark Magician, but it's only worth bringing back Dark Magician if you're pushing for OTK, or if you're bringing it back to trigger Dark Magical Circle during your opponent's turn, or your turn. And on the back of that, we are only playing 1 circle, and the excavation for the Dark Magician cards is very low, because these are the only 4 cards here that you could excavate and technically add apart from the Dark Magician himself, so it does minimize its utility in the deck. If it wasn't for being like Dark Magician nostalgia, in theory you could cut these cards completely, but you still want to maintain the heart and soul of Dark Magician. A lot of questions will be asked about the double Red Eyes Fusion, and the reason it's only 2 and not 3 is because an Ash on a Red Eyes Fusion pretty much ends your turn then and there, and with the way the game is going, you might even get OTK'd the next turn. So you do have to be very, very careful, which is why we've got 2, and it's one of the ones where if you see it, great. If you dig it off of Prosperity, amazing. If not, you still have the fallback of Magical Eyes Fusion and the Secrets of Dark Magic. Not only can that get you into Dragoon, which you do play 2 copies of, but it can also preview get you into your Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, which can protect your back row, which will be even more important when you get into your side deck and you go for stuff like Rivalries, but it can also protect your Beast and your Regained on top of that. So it has multiple purposes. So that's it for the Dark Magician cards. As you can see, it does take up 50% of the deck, which does mean, in my opinion, that it's not an engine. I kind of see cards that are around about less than 10 cards is an engine. Above 10 cards is a part of the deck. So in this one, of course, we are playing more than 10 Bystials, so it is a Dark Magician Bystial build rather than a Bystial Dark Magician build. And we are playing less than 10 for the Dogmatika engine, so it is not a Dogmatika version. So for the Dogmatikas, we are playing triple Nadir Servant, 1 Fleur de Lis and 1 Ecclesia, alongside the 1 Schism. Now, a lot of you are going to be like, well, hang on a minute, why aren't you playing Punishment? And that's because, yes, you could go very boss monster heavy in the forms of the Bystials, but you also still want to be able to access your extra deck. You don't want to shut yourself off from being able to access that the next turn, which is why I'd rather go for a Fleur de Lis off of the back of the Ecclesia than Punishment, because Fleur will still act as a form of disruption. And if I wanted to cut the middleman out and just search straight into a Fleur as an additional extender for power plays, I could do off the Nadir Servant as well, so that I either drop it during my opponent's turn as a defender, or I drop it during my turn as an extender for power plays. The Schism, a lot of you have asked me this every single time I show this in the profile, but the way this works is often the Nadir Servant, you send your El Shadoll App Clone. Your El Shadoll App Clone will then allow you to add a Shadoll card from the deck to the hand and discard a card. So in theory, if you want to, you would Nadir Servant, add Ecclesia if you can't special summon it, or Fleur de Lis. You would then add the Shadoll Schism, discard a card being the Fleur de Lis, putting a light in the graveyard for your Bystials. Then during your opponent's turn, when you activate Schism, you would already have a Shadoll monster in the graveyard, and all you need is another Dark monster. So that could be Souls, that could be Red Eyes, Dark Magician, any of the Bystial cards. And what you do is you banish the App Clone and you banish any Dark, and you get to summon a Winder. Not only will that then Winder lock your opponent, but if your opponent controls a Dark monster, you also get to use the second effect of Schism and send a Dark monster from the field to the graveyard. Again, even more important and even more powerful, especially if you chain this to them activating a card that will special summon a monster. So what I mean by that is, for example, let's say they go, okay, activate Instant Fusion, and you go, that's fine, chain Schism. You resolve the chain backwards, you'd banish your Dark and your App Clone, you would summon out the Winder. That would then allow them to resolve instant fusion, summoning out Kit Kalos in this example. Kit Kalos will then be able to trigger her effect to send, but off the back of that as well, you will then still be resolving, or you still have the ability to resolve a Shadoll Schism, but regardless of that, they'll then be able to send or add off of that. Now, if they're adding to something like a Sullet because they want to negate the Winder, that's absolutely fine. They won't be Foolish Burial on anything because they won't be able to special summon it, and then even if you do get rid of the Kit Kalos, then their mills won't mean anything because they won't be able to summon anything off the back of them, so you're just clear to go, even if they did search out a Sullet, and then you get to power play through, and you'll still have stuff like a Dragoon as well. So that's basically the Shadoll package alongside the Dogmatika package. We'll revisit the Winder and App Clone when we get to the extra deck. And then for the Bystials. Now for the Bystials, I've got 2 Lubellion. It's purely because I only own 2. I think 2 is more than enough because you're mainly going to be sending it to get into your Magnamut. Magnamut is your searcher that can get you to this guy, or more so than not will get you to your Druid's one. And then the last one is the Sorinir. The reason you only play one of that is because you ideally want to be, if you get to him, you want to Foolish Burial your Regained, so that off of your Lubellion, you activate face up your Beast. Beast will reset the Regained, and then anytime a Light or Dark is banished, you draw a card, or put it back to the bottom of there and draw a card. So if you activate Magicalized Fusion, for example, you banish Dark Magician, you can then use this to target a Dark Magician, put it back to the bottom of there and draw a card. So you're recycling your Dark Magician. Not only that, but it can recycle your Bystials from the graveyard, broken. And as I've already mentioned, if you really, really wanted to, you could go Magician's Soul, send the Regained with Beast face up, draw a card, and then in the end phase, Beast resets it. So if you've already summoned and already drawn off of this, and then you send it to draw again through Souls, and then reset it with Beast, you've gained maximum advantage from it. Obviously, we do play triple Pot of Prosperity. Now, again, it does clash with Souls, it does clash with Servant, and it will also clash with the Regained draw. So it is something you need to be very aware of. The only time you would actually activate Prosperity is ideally going first, turn 1, when you're not going to want to be using your Soul, you're not going to want to be using your Servant, and it's rare you're going to be using your Brigade. Regained, not Brigade. And off of the back of that, the reason you're doing that is you're going to be digging for specifically either an Adir Servant, a Red Eyes Fusion, or a route to get to your boss monsters that you need. It is a card that could be cut if you wanted to. You could play stuff like Allure of Darkness, because all of these, apart from the Lubellion, are dark, so it does give you more targets. But again, Allure of Darkness is something you don't really want to be banishing, and if you were, you could arguably put Regained up to 2, because you'd want to see it earlier, and then you get to recycle the banish as well. So moving on to the extra deck, of course we are playing 2 of the Mac Daddy boss monster, and that is of course Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Love this card, artwork 10 out of 10, effect 10 out of 10. The only issue with it is how to summon the bloody thing easily, and until we get a card that is Red Eyes Fusion but for Dark Magician, and then let's say it locks you into Spellcasters, oh please Konami, I am dreaming of that day. Lock us into Spellcasters, I really don't care. Let us send a Dragon so we can send Timaeus and Dark Magician. I don't even mind if it says send Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl, because then it also lists them so it's searchable off a rod. Broken. But that's dreaming. You then got the 1 Dark Magicians. You don't have to play this card. I just play it because it looks pretty. I know, very bad excuse on that one. 1 Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, Mac Daddy. So once you've already got 1 Dragoon, sometimes it can be overkill to go into 2, so you just go into this as well, and it will protect your back row. So it can protect your Schism, it can protect your Beast, and it can protect your Regained. And then if you go for the Rivalry play as well, it can protect that. But keep in mind, with Rivalry, you are mixing up with the Bystial, so you're playing around with Spellcasters and Dragons, so you have to be a bit more careful. Something like Tikaboo might actually be pretty funny as well. We do play a Super target in the form of Drakus Depelia. The reason we play this is because you can put Super Poly into your side deck. This can very easily be any other card you want. There's a lot of flex spots in here, which is why Prosperity is so good. And the main card, like I said, is Dragoon, your App Cologne, or your Winder. They are the most important cards there, alongside your Link monsters as well. The last fusion monster is an Elder Entity, because this is your aggressor off of the back of Nadir's Servant. It's not something you ideally want to be sending, but it does give you a additional pop from the form of Nadir's Servant as well. For the Link monsters, we've got the 1 Relinquish Anima and the 1 World Unduct. Now, the Relinquish Anima is if your opponent gets lazy and puts a monster in front of the extra monster zone, you can actually turn into a Relinquish Anima, steal it, and then that's just one way of baiting out an interruption or just getting a monster for free. The Unduct is actually really important, so a lot of times people question, why do you play this instead of Link Spider? The main reason is it's because it's a dragon. Now, you're not supposed to always open up Magicalized Fusion, but if you were to open up, for example, Magicalized Fusion and Magician Souls, That is a Dragoon if you have this, because what that will give you the ability to do is that will give you the ability to activate Souls, Special Summon Dark Magician, turn Dark Magician into Umduct, and then activate Magicalized Fusion, being able to banish monsters listed on it from your field or graveyard. There go, a Dark Magician in the graveyard and a Dragon on the field. Gives you a 1-pop Dragoon, but just from those two cards, everything else has led you to your main boss monster. We then do play the 1 IP Masquerena alongside the Dark Charmer for a Unicorn access play, a Selene access play, and of course an access code access play. So you can see the kind of power surge that this then has, because your IP is your generic into Unicorn, which will lead you to access code. Your Spellcaster Reliant, or if your opponent has Darks in the graveyard, is your Dark option. Revive that Dark monster, link them two into Selene. As long as you have at least 3 spells in your graveyard on the field, or your opponent does as well, Selene will have enough tokens to bring back any Spellcaster that isn't a link monster into defense, and then that straight away can be turned into access code. In this combo here, let's say you went into Dark, the best thing about that, if you had a Dark Magician in the graveyard, is you can actually get a free pop off of the access code. And what I mean by that is free, as in the number 3, because you would end up having a Dark, a Light, and you would turn Dark Magician into Umduct, to then go into access code. You would also have a Wind, giving you a very nice board clearance and a 3k boost as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much it for the competitive Bystial or Dark Magician Bystial profile. Let me know what you think of this deck down in the comments below. I know it is incredibly expensive, especially when you've got Pot of Prosperities, you've got your Magnamoots and everything like that, but it is Dark Magician. Like, if you're going to do it right, and this is one of the best ways to do it. Unfortunately, pure Dark Magician just doesn't really cut it on the competitive scene as much as you want it to, but a version like this will seriously kick some butt, and I highly advise everyone to try it out online. If you have the cards lying around, build it physically and do some test stands till you get familiar with it, and kind of work it from there. But I've had a lot of fun with this deck, and I can't wait to see how it continues to adapt as it goes forward. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.